appreciate that if we got that into the schools. A couple of the motions on the agenda. Motion 21. I find that to be unlawful, discriminatory, and downright racist.
Which page? Which page are you referring to?
There was a document leaked that said you guys are looking to pass 30-something motions.
Well, we're not going to interrupt you.
So that's not something, I won't go into the rest of the motions that were leaked. That where's the addendum for everyone to look at? Okay. So that addendum is not posted.
Anything else, sir?
Yes. The other thing too is I'm wondering what is truth to the rumor that we have ineligible or out-of-district students playing on our varsity basketball team?
Are those your questions?
Those are my questions, yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond with your permission to one of the questions here. I could be corrected, but this 4-page list of addendum, or addendi, if you will. This is not an official Board of Education document. That is why it is not part of the agenda this evening. However, any Board of Education member by law has the right to make any and all motions he or she wants. There is, this is America, as I'm told, and there is freedom of speech, which includes the right to make motions. That doesn't mean they have to pass. That doesn't mean if they're blatantly illegal, the board attorney will advise. But these are not official, as far as I know. I was away for a few days, but as far as I know, but in contact with the district, these are not official agenda of the Board of Education. I will note that actually it's encouraging that there are members of the Board of Education who are actually taking the time to look to change. Making change is a popular saying in America, but that doesn't mean these are not official board motions. So I'm answering that question.
And even though it's not from a legal, aspect, I've spoken with the board attorney as well as the athletic director, as well as the issue you speak of with students on our basketball team. And right now, they are investigating what will be found to be an unfounded, statement against some students that were Lakewood students, are Lakewood students, have been Lakewood students, and all of the appropriate documentation is forthcoming. And it really was, quote unquote, some type of, so as far as I'm concerned, a witch hunt. But no, we are not playing any students on our varsity basketball team from another town.
We cannot get into more specifics at this time. Barbara Cutter, I do want to ask the board president, there are several Board of Education members who would like to hear from some of the bus vendors, because the Board of Education is not going to tolerate a situation where monies are being expended and allegedly services are not being provided. Some of those bus companies are here this evening and have indicated they would like to speak to the board in closed session, which could be legal if it's dealing with contractual obligations. So when the public is finished, I'd ask you to entertain that. Barbara Cutter, sorry for that.
Barbara Cutter, 65 Drake Road. All right, my first question is security at the high school. We are now seeing a direct result of the cuts that were made on the security at the high school. My understanding is that there were a few fights in one day, yesterday, and was handled well because we are understaffed when it comes to security. What is going to be done about that? I'd also want to comment about phone calls to the board, different departments. Phone calls are not being answered Machines are picking up, no return phone calls, transportation, child study team. Something needs to be done about that. Also, now that you're talking about the SES program that it's starting, is there a monitoring system put in place, and is the parent involvement part of it put in place? And the other thing is that the sidewalks at the high school, I'm not sure about any of the other schools, but at the high school, have been covered with ice, the only sidewalk going out to the buses. Nothing is being done about it. That's it.
With regard to the, I'm not going to go in order, but with regard to SES, we have done a pretty meticulous job of establishing what program every single parent has. I believe it's close to 1,100 families that are eligible. Of those, we are at this point close to 900, I believe it's 940, and we are still pushing very hard for those parents who are eligible to indicate their choice. It's being done by phone, it's being done by direct flyer. We put it on the website, and I think at this point we're close to 90% filling those positions for SES. And that will begin. We're establishing the buses, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said before, I'm trying to get it as close as we can to the test. With regard to the security of the schools, I too will make a motion to the board that we do need more security. And it's not just the high school.
Well, through the chair, are you making some sort of motion, because the board can only vote on what you make motions of? Or a suggestion? Are you making a specific suggestion?
I have not spoken to the board about it. There's been many things that have developed over the course of the last couple of months, and I've taken some precautions at the schools. For example, we started at Oak Street. At Oak Street, one of the things that was pointed out to me by one of the parents was that you can walk in and go to the office. Those are the protocols, but oftentimes people do not. So at this point, we have assigned personnel in front of the door, so you can't go throughout the building. That's what I'd like to see in every single school. However, what you're referring to, we do need, and that would be something that I would recommend. I have not recommended it to the board as of yet, but I will.
I was looking online today and noticed that there are grants available to help with this. Have they been pursued also?
Through the chair, actually, we have pursued in the past, thanks to the Beth Medrash Gavoa. We did actually apply for a federal grant where we did get some monies, if you recall, several years ago. I believe it was a couple $100,000. I don't remember, but we did successfully get a grant. There are other grants, which I know Dr. McCord and others are pursuing. But I do want to publicly, I do represent the board. I'm hearing that there are security issues, but I'm not hearing any specific recommendations from the superintendent or assistant superintendent. I don't know how much more it needs to take for the red flag to go up, that there's security. I just want to make it clear to the public that the board cannot vote on will be suggested or will be recommended. That's future tense. I don't need that spelling program to tell me that. So I guess the question is, Ms. Silva, are you making any specific recommendations? I'm sure my client, the Board of Education, would gladly go into closed session should you need that time to make specific recommendations.
I will obviously do that when we do go into closed session. I have discussed it over many times with our previous board, with Mr. Finger, and monies were very tight. However, under the most recent events, I believe that we're going to have to move around money to make sure that we have more security. So yes, Mr. Inzelbuck, in response to your question, I will be making that recommendation.
Through the chair?
Yeah.
We did, if I remember a few months ago, set up a hotline for parent complaints. And at that time, parent complaints were supposed to be answered within 48 hours, depending on the criteria of the complaint. obviously that hasn't happened.
Well, funny you should say that, because I did ask Mrs. Medina today to give me numbers. And in the beginning of October, when we made that accommodation, and we have the phone number, there were over 100 calls, mostly about lunchroom applications.
I don't want to cut this off, but we are way beyond 4 minutes, and I don't want anyone to think we're favoring anyone over. But that's your decision, Mr. President and board.
Just lastly, in the last
I missed
month,
that.
we've had only 7 complaints or concerns.
Thank you.
The next person would be Tracy Tiff.
As Mr. Tiff comes up, I want to go ahead and speak to the issue of security guards and safety in the high school. This is not a new issue. This is an issue that we have categorically omitted to address on the level that it needed to be addressed at the very fundamental basis. We know that we've cut. We know that we didn't have the number of positions that we wanted to have, and we hope that nothing happened. This has been going on for quite some time, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're not going to be happy until somebody is seriously injured. You know, you talk about penny wise and pound foolish. We're beyond that. It's flat out ignorance. And what's going to happen is exactly what we're hearing. You've heard people come up here and say, what are we going to do with a gun? What are we going to do is this. 5 people got taken out. Somebody got killed in our community. Listen, if we are not going to take heed at any other time, not with all the pleas when we were creating the budget, not at all the pleas when it was like these numbers are going to be fine. If people don't feel that they're safe, guess what? Perception is reality. They're not safe. So, not doing something is about as guilty as doing something wrong. And, I'm not going to bite my tongue, and the bottom line is I really feel that, we have to make some very serious decisions about safety for all. And I'm not confident that we have. We might have to revisit some things. So, doesn't have to be.
Tracy Tiff.
Thank you. 1380 Pasadena Street. One of the concerns that I've been listening, and Leonard is on a very good point. When we got rid of the security director, and you didn't put someone in place to enforce who comes into school. We had an ID policy. I don't even think ID was given out this year to the kids. I'm not sure. But when you have a principal in your school who I consider to be ineffective, because all of these complaints should be addressed by the principal. And the uniform policy that's not being enforced. The security issue, who's allowed to come into the school, who's not allowed to come into the school. Those are issues that should be handled by department heads, not by the principal to oversee. Because she's wearing many hats. She's the director of guidance. She's the security director. She has all these hats, and you put too many hats on, what's going to happen? Some of them are going to fall off. Okay, so that's something to think about. Now back to the agenda, which is very important that no one else seems to be talking about. Page 1, the transportation issue for the special ed, $300,000. That's a lot of money. Page 4. I remember at the last meeting that we came to on December 20th, I actually have the agenda here. Page 4, where the busing contracts, where there were mistakes made on those bids that were put in, and then bids had to be canceled, and then other pricing had to be set to make up the difference, whether it was our mistake or the bus company's mistake or the buses, the owner of the buses. I was under the impression the last meeting that we decided not to award these contracts to these buses if they're going to make these kind of mistakes. One of them is for $19,000 error, one's for $33,000 of an error. If a bus company is going to make these kind of mistakes, they should eat that cost. They should eat that cost. So next time, they won't make a mistake, or forget a route, or forget this, or forget that. The board should not have to put money out for their mistakes, if that's the case. And that's on page 4. Letters TUVWX. Nothing to. I see that Mrs. Williams is moving from the high school, from the middle school to the high school. I really can't talk about personnel, but I see that they hired a new principal, assistant principal on page 8. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to screw it up. First name is Richard. My thing is, who is this guy? Where did he come from? What kind of experience did he have? What kind of background does he have? If he's another teacher, what makes him better than Mr. Pacellis that you got rid of, who was with the district for a lot longer? That really doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if you go on the person or not, but if someone would look into that, I would really appreciate that.
Well, actually, my legal ruling is that the assistant superintendent can respond to that.
Okay. Can I finish though before
Yeah,
she does? Thank you, man. Page 11, letter 4. I just want to make sure that I don't want to mispronounce the last name or the first name, but it's number 4, the first name, Torah. Am I pronouncing that right? I don't know, not sure what the last name is, but it's on page 11, letter 4. Is that $100,000 for a professional development workshop? Is that the right amount, or is that a typo?
It looks like 111,000.
Is that correct, or is that a typo?
It's correct.
Even though the money is coming from Title I, does anyone know what kind of training is this?
We plan on making a motion to table that,
Okay.
because none of us were addressed in advance as to what that's all about, and it's an obscene amount of money.
Exactly.
And we're definitely going to table that.
Thank you. I want to, real quick, one more thing, Mike. I'm going to talk about last meeting about us putting out bidders for the collection of the trash. I don't know who we are on that, but did we ever move forward with that, Mike?
Yes, we had the bid opening this past Friday.
Oh, good. That's great. So we'll actually save money according to what the township is going to charge us, then we'll be able to.
It will be on the next agenda. We have to accept or reject.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
With regard to the movement of certain personnel, much of the movement of the personnel is based on data analysis. We have children, and less than 20% of our children are passing the algebra, and therefore we need people with expertise, and we're making movements. We're also making movements at the middle school. That's why you see that there will be movement. I can't discuss beyond that, but we're trying to place expertise to bolster certain things, to provide professional development where it's needed in both the middle school and the high school. So that's why those movements have been made.
Through the chair. As you saw, we finished the public agenda. Okay. Annette Kearney. Annette Kearney. I'm sorry, I didn't see her.
It's 15 St. Andrews Court.
We just want to take a second on behalf of the board to thank the various police departments who are here this evening. We see many different stripes and colors. We do thank them for coming. We also see our esteemed mayor here somewhere. If not on ABC News, he's somewhere here. But he is here tonight. We thank him for coming to our meeting, seeing democracy in action. Annette Kearney.
What he sees here is not democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. It only took you a delayed response. Come on.
Mr. Waters doesn't believe in democracy.
And then, I'm sorry, you still have your 4 minutes.
Thank you. 15 St. Andrews Court. Various parents are standing here complaining about the busing transportation, where the students are standing, especially, we know that, what was it, 2 storms ago, on the holidays, that was a storm that none of us were prepared for. Unfortunately, it's not just one group of students. It's the entire district, the entire town that's suffering from residents not cleaning their walkways, cars that are parked on both sides of the street. I see it every day, especially by the high school. If you ever go by the high school, right on the corner of East 7th and Ridge, and everybody can do what they want to do, but it's about the safety of the kids. We still have children that walk down Ridge Avenue, the back of Ocean County Park, to get to the middle and high school. There's absolutely nowhere for them to even walk. So when you talk about safety, and I'm not making light of anyone's children, because I think all of our children are important, and the safety of our children, all of our children, is very important. But we have to look at the entire town. Maybe we can make some suggestions to the township that on those days when the snow is horrible, that it's only one side of the street parking or something, so the buses can make the turns into the cul-de-sacs and into the different developments. And also, I know that across the state that municipalities are asking residents to shovel their walkway, so the students who do walk to school can walk, or even us, if we decide to walk, that we can walk on the street. But I'm in agreement with a lot of things. So many times as a community, we wait until something happens before we react. We have got to be proactive about things so that they don't happen, or we alleviate as much tragedy as possible. But I'm letting you know that on the corner of East 7th and Ridge, somebody's going to get hurt. It may not be a student, it may be one of the gentlemen going in for prayer. It could be anyone. But that intersection right there is 100% dangerous. Talk about transportation. Also, by the high school, we're starting to see that there are multiple people dropping off van loads of young men by the high school. So the word was that we thought that maybe they were coming to join us at the Lakewood High School, but we know that's not true. So therefore, all of a sudden we see a bus show up in between, what street is Somerset, and whatever that new street is, before you get to the curb. There's a bus that shows up, and they all jump on the bus. So my question is, if we're all talking about money of transportation, we're talking about buses not getting to pick up the preschoolers and the young students, so on and so forth, why do we have buses coming in the middle of a street and kids being dropped off to jump on this bus? Don't ask me the route number because I don't know. Don't ask me the vendor because I don't know. But what I will do is, as I drop my son off, because my son doesn't take a negative bus, but he takes another bus in the morning. That bus doesn't show up on time either. I take my son to school just like some other people take their children to school. So it's not just one bus company. We have to look at it district-wide and make the best judgment possible. But I will call the transportation department, and I also recommend, if possible, for the complaints. Maybe this gentleman here mentioned it earlier about the paperwork. No one in society wants to deal with paperwork right now. So maybe there can be an online application that parents can go on, file their complaint right then and there. Yes, we'll do it after we cool off and make sure that it is a legit complaint. But someone could monitor that. That'll help on both ends and help keep our kids safe. In addition,
I just have to say 4 minutes, but
Go ahead, keep talking.
the communication. Communication in this district is horrible. One side of town gets the information, the other side doesn't. There was 90-minute delays that none of us knew about on one occasion. We had parents standing at the bus stops, and I understand why we have to have 90 minutes, because honestly, I'd rather keep my child home than to buses be slipping and sliding all over town, because half the people in the town can't drive as it is on a good day. So I understand the 90-minute delay. I think that we all have to be real about it. I understand, I too have to go to work. We have to make provision so that our kids can get to school even if we're not there. The reference to the hotline, I heard Mr. Fink mention it. We as parents, we don't know what the hotline number is. So if there's a hotline number, as a parent in the district, I would like to know, and I'm pretty sure all the other parents would like to know as well. If it is, it must be buried. So if you guys could just let us know, we'll be fine.
I believe it's at the top of the website, but we'll have our tech coordinator review that tomorrow morning. Dr. McClure, if you would so address that with Mr. Trishada tomorrow.
Just a comment. The uniforms. It's too late to implement uniforms this year. I do believe that the board was asked, or the superintendent was asked, exactly what is the policy of the uniforms. I would like to recommend that maybe we have the Fashion Institute at the high school, or maybe that's there, maybe it's not there. Maybe have the kids design a polo shirt that has a Lakewood emblem. Maybe something to encourage and incent them, and maybe there could be. We already know what the principal said, so ain't no need to go there. And my last thing is there has to be just, parents have to be involved. Whenever there's a community group, make sure I'm not saying I need to be, but there should be parents from the private school as well as the public school if need be, on whatever community groups are formed. We have a lot of people going around town, politicking, trying to get in the headlines. That's not what this is about. It's about our kids, their education, and their safety. Thank you.
Christine, come on.
Christina Clements, 108 Living Man Drive. First, in regards to the SES, I know you addressed SES, Ms. Sola. I just wanted to know, how are we going to be informed? Via letter or, how, or telephone? I know my daughter was sent home with an application that I filled out and was able to pay the providers and everything. And I was glad to see it, but I guess with another woman's concern is after that, I just kind of didn't hear anything. So I didn't know until earlier when you did mention it. So you kind of answered it already, but I just want to know in what way we want to be informed. And also in regards to communication that Ms. Kearney was talking about, especially with the delayed openings, I've noticed, and I don't know, and this is just a suggestion, I don't know if it's in English speaking and in Spanish, because I've noticed in my development at least, there were a lot of Hispanic parents, and they were the ones that were standing outside because they didn't know that there was a delayed opening, and it seemed like all the English-speaking parents knew, but the Spanish-speaking parents did not know that there was a delayed opening, and honestly, the only way I found out was through Facebook, and that's just, honestly, Ms. Kearney posted it, and I posted it, and then everybody after that kind of just, piggybacked off of Facebook, and that's the only way. Honestly, I think 2 days ago, or the last delayed opening, the way I found out, my daughter went outside, and she's like, Mom, the buses aren't here yet. I went on Facebook, and sure enough, everybody said 90-minute delay, and I was like, oh, 90-minute delay via Facebook. So, just the communication with that. And also have a question. With declining budgets, will the township be open to an adequacy funding lawsuit?
I can answer. With regard to one of the things that I noticed in looking at our communication, because it's of great concern to me too, that I can't just reach out. One thing I noticed in our communication was that there were no radio stations or TV stations in Spanish that have been reached out to in the past. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we have done, that I've assigned one of our staff members to do, is to reach out to a very big radio station which is listened to by a lot of Spanish-speaking parents, is Radio Wado and Mega. It's never been called, so we are now beginning. They were shocked when we called them, so we're beginning to do that. I get a call at about 4:30. I try my best to confirm with everyone I have to confer to, so that by 5 o'clock the chain starts. The chain means also calling those places, but I agree with you, and that's why I met with some of the community people, including pastors, and gave them, and some of the SES providers, we have a chart, and we're going to try to get a network. You use Facebook. You know that a lot of parents don't use that. So how do I get that information out? Person by person if necessary. So there's a variety of ways that we've tried. It's the first time I realized that we weren't reaching everyone.
And, it was, I live on a block where the majority of the parents on my block are Spanish speaking, and the other block, and it's, my kids are home, they know it's 90 minutes delay, I get the call at 5 in the morning. So I'm looking outside and I'm amazed, these little kids, so I'm going up and down the block, and there's a language barrier, so I'm doing everything I can to communicate this in a language I really don't speak. So we have a real serious problem with this. And this is a problem, a real problem. And, in some districts where they have that system in place, where they press one button and every parent is called, we really need to go ahead and invest in that. Because the majority of these parents have phones. Everyone has a phone number. And we need to invest in that system where we do the call, it does the chain call, and it gives you the automated, and it says 90-minute delay. It's ridiculous that we're still at a point where we're talking about this, and we got kids and parents that stand out in frostbitten weather to find out from somebody who happens to be driving by.
My name is
Completely unacceptable. We should be budgeting for it. We should be planning for it, and we have to stop talking about it, because we talked about it before. This is not a new conversation. I think they call it, I forget what the system's called. Yes. Yeah, my son, it needs to happen, because all this is still going to be hit or miss. Everyone has a phone number.
616.
That we can be guaranteed.
5336.
So, unless, once again, proactive, I hope that we as a board hear this, and that we're willing to say that our students and our parents are worth it, and we can do this and make it real simple. Whatever it costs, it doesn't matter when people don't know what's going on. And we can use the same system for the issues that occur, for the parents that need to be notified. It's a one-stop system.
Yeah, I was going to say, because today, the 2 days that schools are locked down, I found out also via Facebook.
Yes.
Kids are posting on Facebook.
Yes.
Oh, we
channel
locked
on
down
YouTube?
again. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
my channel on YouTube.
And we should, you know, we got serious issues that need to be addressed in a very serious manner. And, you know, once again, we have a public, you know, we have parents coming before us telling us that we have an obvious issue. And we have an actual solution. It's whether or not we're going to choose as a board to do the right thing. Because the right thing needs to be done. I just don't know if we're going to do it.
Yes, how are we?
6 minutes.
With regard to the SES, the vendors will be notifying all the parents.
The vendors are going to notify
Right.
the letter?
Yes, yeah, they're going to also call. They're very interested in getting the students started. So they've been given their contracts. It was within the last 2 weeks, they were given contracts. Buses are being arranged. So if you're not notified, then call me.
And the last question I have, declining budgets is township interest in adequacy funding lawsuit. I don't know if anyone is aware. Mr. Williams can explain better than I can.
Well, he'll explain that to me, but it's 6 minutes and 20 seconds.
Well,
Pastor Jackson.
is that it? My questions were answered, thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Pastor Earl Jackson, Refuge Apostolic Church, 271 Joe Parker Road. How's everybody doing this afternoon?
10 to 10, sir.
I understand that. But I noticed that we're in pain all over. The community is suffering. Our children, they're hurting. And everywhere you look, it seems like we're constantly going at one another. We need some healing. We need some healing. One thing bothers me is that how long now has the incident happened in right across the street from me? And there has not been any type of counseling at the school to welcome the kids back. We need that. We spoke earlier. We need closure. We need as early as tomorrow to get those kids into the auditorium, talk to them, see what's on their mind, see how we can work with them so they can get back to learning and not to hurting. Yesterday and today, they were showing you their pains. At least we could come here at the board meeting and yell at one another, throw gambles at each other, tell somebody shut up and everything else, but the children can't do nothing. They lash out at each other, and they're supposed to be going to school to learn, not to fight. Now, if we're going to fight, then what are we teaching our children? We got two sets of parents that are hurting tonight. A young man who's gone, and another young man who just well says gone as well. And every one of us in here ought to be feeling pain tonight. Every one of us. And I knew both of them. Are we going to do what we were saying?
I did suggest to the board, as I told you I would, sir.
Okay, and the outcome?
They have to make decisions. I keep on hearing the word will. That's future tense where I come from.
We cannot wait. We cannot wait for next week. We cannot wait for next month. Something as early as tomorrow needs to be done. These children need to be addressed. Possible, reach out to what leaders you can. You got some here, right here. schools, water shares as well, different ones. Your name is here. Look, we reach out, set up something where you can get them. I understand where you have 9 periods in school, and you have 4 of those as lunch or lunch. Break up a couple of them.
Through the chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your reference. That's fine.
Through the chair.
Mr. Seiler, perhaps speak up.
I said through the chair.
Okay, well, obviously the chair can hear you.
Does this, for us to implement what Reverend Jackson is saying, does that need a motion, or does that just need the superintendent?
It needs the superintendent administration to propose a program that does not need board approval unless there's expenditure of funds.
Okay, good.
So I would assume what you could do is direct the superintendent and her staff to put together some sort of program along the lines of what the pastor is recommending. But I assume Ms. Silva is in the process of doing that, but I don't want to assume.
Pastor Jackson, I would like so that we can send out a strong message and a coordinated message. I would like to meet with you, and then because
Pastor, would you be available at 10:30 this evening?
I will meet myself.
Ms. Silva will meet with you then.
Because we don't. I look at not to intercept, but I'm been along with them who tried to get SES from almost 2 years ago, and I notice it's not in here yet, so we can't make it like that. We must work now.
10:30.
I realize that, but I gotta say this publicly, we have to plan it out because I'd like to see it happen, and we have a discussion tonight, but it necessitates more than just one discussion so that we can really send out a strong message using multiple venues.
Let's start the discussion at 10:30, Pastor. Thank you.
Make one comment?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have it done also at the intermediate school, not only at the high school.
Jerome Robinson. That's your turn.
Jerome Robinson, the Father's College, Avenue, Lakewood.
1 minute. Reverend Pastor, if you have any other reverends or pastors or community leaders, you may want to invite them to that meeting this evening. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted also to speak about the high school specifically, but more importantly, all of the schools in the community, whether that's on one side of the street or the other with children, that's on both sides. And the different issues like trauma, fear, insecurity, anxiety, and discomfort for the children and for the staff based upon the issues you just have that the whole community knows that, coming up Route 9 and what has been done, because I know in the high school there's been many issues that went on yesterday and hasn't been dealt with. I'm a licensed psychologist, so in a way that it should have been done in that school. And I'm asking if the board is going to have an intervention and after that an ongoing prevention measures to deal with what has happened and what may happen.
Do you have any other questions? Well, they can answer that. Yes.
In terms of, number 11 on page 6 says approval to submit applications to the state of New Jersey for the school improvement grant, and that is with regards to the high school. And that's not an instant fix, and it's not a tomorrow fix, but it starts a committee tomorrow to look at the high school and all of what's going on there. And to improve a school isn't just looking at the academics, it's looking at the social and emotional and academic health of our students. So yes, it's here to apply, and the grant isn't due until March, but the process has to be started now to actually approve for this grant. And that's not necessarily answering your question in terms of what's being done right now, but it's answering your question in the sense that we know we need help. And this is one way that I can address getting help real help in the future beyond what we can piece together and with what we can piece together. Because I need everyone here to work on this. I need everyone behind it. As you have all stated, you're behind it. We know that there's a need for it, and that's why I need this grant. So it doesn't address it now, but it addresses it in the sense that we know that we have to fix problems.
Rivka Barron?
That wasn't 4 minutes, was it?
It was. Sorry. You can give, it's up to you.
Well, no, well, I want to say something about that. I mean, once again, and I hate feel like I have to get up on, on this whole bandwagon about issues that we have to be proactive in. This isn't even proactive. This is actually reactive, and we're not even reactive. I mean, proactive would have been being prepared for such a time as this and having everybody ready to swoop in and do what was necessary. It has already occurred, and we are in crisis mode. And there really should be no contemplation about if we're going to respond. It's how quickly, who's going to be there, and how we're going to get on the ground. It's an understatement to say that the community is hurting. I mean, look around you. It's painfully obvious. We have gentlemen here right now that are here to protect and serve that aren't even from this community, because that's how devastated this entire community is right now. And we got help coming from the outside in other areas. But what is going on and what have we done for the children? It can't wait. The grant is wonderful. And what Pastor Jackson is proposing is going to happen. I have 2 children in the school. You don't want to get to a place where you have a group of children that are so desensitized to such a horrific act, and that they don't feel that we need to address it in a very, very orchestrated and meaningful way. I have to say that I even read emails, and I'm not going to say from whom, that were so derogatory in manner about how everything went down, or about the players that were involved in this heinous act, that as bad as it was, as adults, you have to be careful what you send out and who you send it to. Because as you heard, there are 2 families hurting, good, bad, or indifferent. Listen, people love people, they still hurt even when they do wrong. And there is a whole team of people that need to be debriefed, because you're right, the school is swelling with who did what to who, and this is my family, and I'm hearing these things being said. And if we don't do something, that thing yesterday, the 5 people that got arrested, that left the school, that's nothing. That is absolutely nothing compared to what's going to happen. And I'm not trying to scare us, but I'm trying to tell you that we have to act, and it ain't about the cost. If we got to bring professionals in to work with our community leaders, there's a crisis. It's a crisis. And, I see nonchalant looks of some of my fellow board members, and I feel like it's falling on some, deaf ears, but I got to tell you, my kids are in the school. I'm not really beat for all this, we'll do it whenever we're going to do it. And we might do it or whatever. It needs to be done. They are in pain, and it's serious. So we'll see if something happens tomorrow. We can meet at 10:30, but are the kids going to get what they need?
Rivka Barron, or Burton, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
202 Regent Drive. That is the public sign-in sheet that was here. Let me remind the board, since the Board of Education does consider the ongoing transportation issues very important, there are several vendors who are here this evening to speak to you in closed session, which will be contractual in nature. There are at least 3 I see here. I would ask you at your leisure to entertain that as soon as possible, since I would imagine they have a perspective on their abeyance and avoidance of contractual terms with the Board of Ed.
Through the chair, I'd like to go to executive session.
Can we vote there? Michael, there's an urgency to what Reverend Jackson said, and Lenny, and the other people.
I'm not saying that.
That have I think you need to look at that, dealing with this issue.
I don't want to be scolded by the board president, but Reverend Jackson.
You won't be scolded by the board president. You can say what you will as long as you will, if you're going to address
as I do,
issues concerning the church.
Reverend Jackson and I spoke today, correct, Reverend? And I did tell you all in closed session that I spoke to Reverend Jackson. So let's call it as it is. At 10:30, Reverend Jackson will be meeting with, if not sooner, with Ms. Silva and Mr. Thomas and Dr. Macora. What I just said has nothing to stop that. That's at 10:30, correct, Reverend? So, you know, I say this as your attorney, do as you wish, but you have vendors here who I'm very concerned if they're complying with their contractual obligations. I am not going to be the middleman here and the mediator. I represent you, and if I had my way, if they don't follow the contract, there are ways, as I've told you publicly months ago. But they are here this evening. So instead of beating this dead and writing emails and calling different sources, allegedly, why don't you meet with them for 10 minutes in closed session?
It never happens for 10 minutes.
All right. Well, then don't meet with them.
We won't.
Well, there is a motion to go into closed
I
session.
believe we've met with them in the past, and there were promises made.
I'm not saying.
Nothing changed.
I made a motion, Mr. President, to go into executive session.
I heard it.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second by Mr. Slacken. Just so we're clear, it's not with that one vendor only who you have met with.
Can we get the names of the vendors that are here to see us so we know who we're seeing?
Apparently, I look in the audience.
I see Catapult. Not Pleasant.
Okay, Mr. Silver, your humor is so humorous at 5 after 10. I see here Mr. Jay's bus service. I see here Mr. Dora Murphy's bus service. I see Mr. Negla bus service. I see several schools who are approved